Koe anō, ai tikai whakatika tēnei. Ko tai mai te wā mo te tīmatanga o tō tātou huihuinga. E puhirake, tuku atu nei ki a koe, nau e tuku karakia mā tātou.
Thank you. Tēnei a koe te tiamana, te rangatira. Nō reira ki te tuwheri i tēnei hui o te atanei ino i tātou. He hono re, he karoria mangarunga ki te whenua. E tō mātou matu nuitarangi ki a tapu tō ingo. E pā e whakawhita ana mātou ki a koe, mō tēnei wā mō tō manakitanga ki a mātou, kua huhu mai i tēnei rā i runga te kaupapa nei. Arahi te mātou e koe, i roto i nei mahi, ko ihu karai ki tō mātou kai whakaora, ake, tonu ake, āmene. Kia ora mai tātou.
Kia ora puhirake. E mihi tēnei ki a koe hei tūwhera, hei whakatika ki tō tātou huihuinga. Me whakawātea ngā kōrero ko kōrero hia i runga i te kaupapa e pāna ki a tātou. So thanks, I'm just extending thanks to Puhirake for opening our hui and clearing the way for our kōrero in this committee, and welcome everybody to the first of our Tangata Whenua Tauranga City Council hui for 2024. Ko iano ngā mihi tēnei ki a tātou. We'll go through the agenda, call for apologies. We have apologies from Anne. Any other apologies? If not, then can someone move that apologies be accepted? Moved. Bill, seconded. Seconded. You got the seconded by Stephen. All in favour? Carried. Public forum. There is nothing booked for the public forum. Late items. There is one late item, a paper from Te Rangapu Mana Whenua Tauranga Moana, their report. So can I call for a mover and a seconder to accept the paper from Te Rangapu as a late item? Moved by Puhirake, seconded by Buddy. All in favour? Carried. Confidential business. There's no confidential items. Change to the order of business. No change to the order of business. We'll move through to the minutes of our last hui, which was the 16th of August. Can I ask if there are any corrections that are required for the minutes, please? None? Then I'll take the minutes as being correct. So can I call for a mover and a seconder to accept the minutes? Moved by Bill, seconded by Matire. All in favour? Carried. Declarations of conflicts of interest. Are there any conflicts of interest for matters that are on the agenda? None. But we'll move through the agenda now. Aroha mai, I did have a chairman's report that I'd prepared, but I didn't submit it. I'm going to do a bit more work on it actually, and submit it. I don't want to build this report up. I'll submit the report at our next hui. So aroha mai for that. Right. First order of business, update on Manawataki o Te Papa. Gareth.
Atamari e tātou. So, ko Gareth Wallace tōku ingoa, GM City Development Partnerships, Tauranga City Council. I was scheduled to come and speak towards the end of last year, but for whatever reason it didn't happen. But for the last 6 months of last year, we made a very conscious and deliberate effort to start getting out and telling the story of city centre transformation to people in person. So we kind of made the decision that the front page of the newspaper is not necessarily the best way to get our good messages out there, and social media certainly isn't the best way to try and tell our positive stories. So we made that conscious effort to go and meet people face to face. We did just under 70 presentations or walking tours of the city centre, and we connected with somewhere around 2,000 people face to face, and just told them the story of what we're trying to achieve in the city centre. So what I thought I would do today is just basically give you that presentation as well. We do actually have a more up-to-date version of the presentation, but I thought we'll bring you up to speed first, and then maybe a couple of months from now I can come back and keep the committee informed in terms of the progress we're making in the city centre. So I'll step you through that. How long would you like me to be? Because I've done this in 10 minutes and I've done it in 2 hours and anywhere in between. So you can 20 minutes works? Yeah?
Yeah, it would be fine.
Okay, cool. I'll aim for that. The 2 hour versions.
2 hours would
Yeah.
be quite popcorn.
Yeah, exactly.
Purpose.
I'll just get Anahira to shoot through the slides, but our city centre is important. It's important for quite a few reasons. We're the 5th largest city in the country. We're the fastest growing. We're the economic powerhouse of the Western Bay of Plenty. But I guess ultimately we'd all like to live in a city where we're proud of our city centre. And I think it's fair to say that for some considerable period of time that has not been the case for Tauranga, and people aren't that proud of our city centre. And my observation of the Commission when they came in is that they acknowledged that and decided to do something about it. And they made some bold decisions to invest in infrastructure and in the city centre, primarily in Te Manawataki o Te Papa. So yep, I'm sure you've all seen the picture. Just play your little video. It's about 1.5 minutes, and it'll kind of set the scene. So yep, give that a go. Let's see if it works.
Are you sharing up to here? So just.
Okay, we'll just. Never mind.
I was going to say unshare because there's that button you've got to push to share the sound. So if you unshare your screen and then share again, and when you do that first thing, there'll be a button up on the right that says share sound. Got it? And then share again, and you should be in. If that doesn't work, I quit.
Yeah. No. Okay, cool. We'll move on. So if you flick to the next slide. So the Te Manawataki project's made up of, program of work is made up of a whole lot of individual projects. The first one of which is the library and community hub. So that building is well advanced. We're at the end of detailed design. The construction teams are on site. We've started piling 900 rammed earth piles in the process of being put in at the moment. And that building's scheduled to be completed in the beginning of at least first half of 2026. 3 stories, lots of books obviously, but think modern, innovative library, community space, shared spaces, innovation spaces, our archives, our research facilities, co-locating with our customer services facility and our eyesight. So be a real draw card for the community in the city centre. As soon as, we could actually watch this because it only has music behind it anyway, no words. Just a little bit of a sneak peek in terms of what the library will look like. Yeah, so that's the Library Community Hub, $95 million, and like I said, scheduled to be finished in the beginning of 26. As soon as the piling machine's finished on that side, they'll move across to the other side of the Te Manawa site and start work on the museum, exhibition gallery and civic whare. So that's scheduled to happen sometime April, May this year, all going well on the library site. That building's not scheduled to be finished from a construction point of view until 28. But if we go to the next slide, I'm just going to turn a little bit so it's easy for me to see. So the building at the front is the new museum, and as you all know, Tauranga's never had a museum. You can go to Katikati and go to museum or Waihi, but you can't actually go to Tauranga. And we have 2 warehouses of precious taonga over at Newton Street at the Mount that we've never been able to get out and share with our community. So as a council and as a city, we're really excited for the first time to actually be able to have a special place to share our taonga with residents of the city and visitors to the city. The big long building behind that is an exhibition gallery, so 900 square metres of exhibition space. And then if you go to the next slide, the little building to the left there is what we're calling the civic whare. So think modern council chamber, modern town hall, meeting place for important public meetings. There's an atea out the front to welcome important people into our city. So those 3 buildings will be built together. Like I said, starting the piling for that 3 or 4 months from now, and then construction will just flow from there. If you go to the next slide, in conjunction with that, we're spending $20 million on the public realm space in between the library community hub and the museum, exhibition gallery and civic whare. We're delivering that in 2 parts. So the part outside the library will be complete when the library is complete, so that we can immediately open the library and it can be used. And then the balance of the site will be done in conjunction with the completion of the rest of the buildings on site. Next slide. As you may have noticed, we're already in the ground at Masonic Park, so we've been there since October last year, working on redeveloping that public realm space. It used to be a crappy car park with a toilet and a bit of concrete and a bit of grass, but we're turning it into a space that hopefully the public feel has got much more public amenity, and that'll be done middle of this year, meant to be July, August this year, so that's well underway. Next slide. In conjunction with that, we're doing a bit of work on the art gallery, so fundamentally moving the door from Wharf Street to Masonic Park so that the art gallery feels like it's part of the Te Manawa o Te Papa precinct. Bigger education space, retail store and event space, cafe, but that work's underway. We're still in the planning and design stage, but the gallery's closed. We've actually moved them to a temporary location at the bottom of Denport Road so they can still put on exhibitions and do their education programs while we're constructing the gallery. The other project, next slide, in the suite of Te Manawa projects is our friend Bay Court that was 40 years old last year. There's $11 million in the budget to give the exterior of Bay Court a little bit of a tickle up so that it doesn't feel like the odd building out on the precinct. It feels like part of the precinct. We're just working through some options in terms of what some other enhancements to Bay Court could look like. Like I said, it's 40 years old. It was fit for purpose for a city of our size 40 years ago. And in terms of the rate at which we've grown, it is now quite a small theatre. It is very well looked after and it's in good nick. It is very well loved by the community. But there's an opportunity with a whole lot of construction teams on site to do a little bit of work there. So we're just working through that at the moment. So that's the Te Manawa suite of projects. Next slide. In conjunction with that, and again, if you've been paying attention, you will have seen a hell of a lot of activity down on the waterfront, and there's just under $100 million in the long-term plan to redevelop the waterfront. And again, this was an early observation from the Commission that we had one of the most amazing waterfronts and harbours in the country, if not the world, and we gave it up to hardstand and car parking. And what the vision really was is that we turned that back into a space that was for people and for connection to the harbour and for recreating and spending time. And that decision has not come without some pain and some challenge from our community, especially car parking related. But the decision was made and we closed it on the end of October, and we're ploughing on with a bunch of projects down there, which I'll talk through now quickly. Next slide. So projects that we've actually finished, the cargo shed, we spent $2.5 million doing some seismic strengthening down at the cargo shed. That was finished and that building's back up and running again now. Next slide. Just before Christmas, we finished the Dive Crescent car park. So we did that in 2 halves, Dive Crescent North and South. That's all finished now, other than we're just going to replace the fence along the railway line to make it look a bit nicer. But there's now 150 car parks in there, and that's open to the public, $8 a day, cheapest parking in town. Next slide. An 80-tonne slab of concrete that went in Easter last year. It's not a very appealing picture. We've actually been in and planted it all now. But that's a railway underpass between the Strand extension and what will be a boardwalk that goes all the way along the water to join up with the Strand South. That's in. It was open for a while and you could walk through and have a look at the water, but because we're constructing the boardwalk at the moment, that's actually all closed off. Next slide. We've just finished we opened before Christmas Tunks Reserve. Been back over the last month, 6 weeks, just doing some touch-up work, planting some gardens, put the runnel in, finished some of the handrails and things like that, but that's now finished and open to the public and has been very well received. I was actually there yesterday, and in the space of about 15 minutes probably watched 20 people go up and down, people with the bikes, then connecting with the Matapihi rail bridge. It was cool to see it being used. Next slide. Up that end of town, we've also finished the Elizabeth Street East streetscape, so tidied that up, new planting, car parks, that's all finished. Next slide. Also at that end of town, as I don't know if you know, but today is the day that the Farmers Building is officially opening. So Buddy, you probably got an invite to the shindig tonight. Oh, last night, there you go. So we've had a piece of work in front of there to redevelop the Elizabeth Street area in front of it and create a linear park. We couldn't finish that work until the crane moved, and the crane was there 2 years longer than it was meant to be, but in October last year it finally moved, which meant we were able to get in and get cracking on finishing this piece of work. That's due to finish in the next couple of weeks, so we're nearly there with that. Next slide. Same with the laneway that connects First Ave and Elizabeth Street, so that's nearly finished and will open in a couple of weeks from now. Next slide. Back down on the waterfront, work's well progressed on a new living seawall between the tidal stairs and Fisherman's Wharf, or Bobby's. So replacing all the rock there with 8,000 tonnes of rock and 100 living seawall pods to bring in the sea life and create the kind of marine environment that supports sea life. So that's well underway, along with a new promenade along the waterfront. Next slide. At the northern end of the waterfront, which is where the car park used to be, we're putting in a 3x3 basketball court and then flat open green space that will become event space in the waterfront. That's well underway. Well, we're there. The site's taken over at the moment from all the rock that's been used for the northern seawall, but as soon as that's done in the next 3 or 4 months, we'll move on to the balance of the site, and that's all scheduled to be finished before Christmas. Next slide. Right next to the Harry McCleary sculptures, which you can see up here in the top right corner, there's $5 million for a destination playground on the waterfront. So we're at the end of detailed design for that at the moment, and that's scheduled to start construction shortly. And again, scheduled to be finished before summer. Next slide. It's just another picture of the most recent render we have of what the destination playground will look like on the waterfront. Next slide. Also, in that part of town, the waterfront is, like I mentioned before, a new boardwalk that connects Strand South to right at the end. There is where the railway underpass is that you will have seen before. That work's underway now and scheduled to be finished before Christmas, before summer. Next slide. And then in terms of other projects in the city centre that aren't Te Manawataki or Te Papa or the waterfront, if anyone's been down Denport Road lately, you will have seen this building coming out of the ground at a great rate of knots, so 1 floor a month at the moment. They're just finishing off the 6th floor, the steel framing's up to the 8th floor. You'll see those floors finish at the rate of one floor a month over the next couple of months. And then from the end of this year, we start our fit out of the building with TCC staff scheduled to move in by end of March, April next year. So a year, 14 months from now, 700 odd TCC staff moving into this building on Denport Road. 6 Green Star rated, largest mass timber construction building in the country, 8 floors, 10,000 square metres. I guess from the prosperity of the city centre point of view, 700 people in the city all day, every day. That's going to make a massive difference. And if you think about farmers just opening, and within a couple of months from now, all going well, there'll be 300 people living there. A year from now, there's 700 people working here every day. It starts to really turn the dial on that critical mass of people in the city centre, which then starts to drive prosperity, and you will genuinely see some of the vacant shops starting to fill up. The market will start to fill the gap of the needs of those people that are in the city centre on a regular basis. Next slide. Any of you that have been around the city for a while will have heard about the concept of a walkway between Memorial Park and the city centre. So we got some clear direction from the Commission on the 21st of August last year to progress with the next steps of that project, and that's not to complete the linear pathway, but what we're going to do is build some connections between 1st, 2nd and 4th Avenue in the water, so you'll be able to come from Denport Road down to a node and relax, have your lunch, contemplate life, connect with the harbour and nature. And then between 6th and 7th Avenue, when we did our engagement on this project last year, and I sat in nearly every single house between the Strand and 7th Ave and talked to all of the homeowners, one of the key pieces of feedback was they really liked the idea of beach replenishment, because there used to be a beach there until we started dredging the harbour, and that kind of changed the tidal flows and a lot of the sand got taken away. So what we're going to try as part of the next stage is we're going to put a couple of groins in between 6th and 7th Ave and test beach replenishment there and see if it works. Because if it does, that creates another opportunity for us further along to start looking at how we could replenish the beach, which speaks to the aspiration of those landholders along there. So that's another project that's ticking away. Next slide. We've done quite a lot of work on the site next to Te Manawa Take o Te Papa, so what we call the TV3 car park on the other side of the road from Bay Court. We call that Site B. We've done a pre-feasibility study and some other work on what a hotel and conference centre could look like on that site. So quite advanced in our thinking. It's not something that's in the long-term plan at the moment. We're requesting a little bit of money to continue the work to move to a formal business case. But we do think that to enhance the city's offering and to complement what we're doing at Te Manawa Take o Te Papa, having a hotel and conference centre in the city at some point in time makes sense. Whether it's high on the priority list right now or whether our debt ceiling allows us to do projects like this when we've got a wide range of other things that are important. I mean, that's a conversation for another day, but we're keen to keep this project progressing because we do think, and all of the economic work that we've done suggests that it's a good idea for the city. Next slide. Also up this part of town, I'm sure you've heard about the concept of a community stadium at Tauranga Domain. So again, 21st of August, clear direction from the Commission that we needed to report back as part of the LTP as to what stage 1 could look like. We put $81 million in the budget, and we've had a team go away, and they'll come back in a couple of weeks and say, right, well, here's what we think the thing could look like, and here for $81 million is what stage 1 could deliver for our community. And that work's nearly done, and we're looking forward to having the design team present that as part of LTP deliberations in a couple of weeks. Next slide. I think that might be it in terms of pictures. Yep, so just to give you an idea of the quantum of things that we've got going on, this is just the city centre, remember. Above the line, we've relatively recently finished. All of those other projects will be finished before Christmas this year. So you can see in quite a short space of time, there's going to be a lot of change in the city centre, and that obviously brings disruption and some challenges for our city centre. But in terms of the decisions the Commission made and the direction they gave us to crack on and get delivering, we're trying to do that as fast as humanly possible. Next slide. Just a couple of other slides. I prepared these slides when I spoke to Downtown Tauranga at their AGM at the end of last year. Stephen and I went along because there's not a lot of noise about the city centre and its current state. Push the button, please, Anahira. So I went and did a search in the Bay of Plenty Times and found all these new headlines, but what I realised is that it's not a new story. So our city centre has been going through some level of pain for some extended period of time. So it's not something that miraculously happened in the last couple of years. We've been on a journey for a while of steady decline. Next slide. And it's not just a Tauranga story, it's the cities all over the countries and town all over the country that are experiencing the same problems. Next slide. And in fact, I found all of these headlines from last year from cities all over the world that are suffering from the traditional city centre decline for a wide variety of reasons. And a classic example is the development of your strip mall or your Westfields or your crossings, and them being a different retail offering and that attracting people. So I guess my message to our city centre retailers and businesses was, look, we know there are some challenges. We feel like we've got a plan to fix that by investing, but principally in Te Manawa-Take o Te Papa and our waterfront, but also that the problem is not unique to our city, and what is unique is that we've had a commission come in, identify the problem, and make some really bold decisions about wanting to change it. And our job as council officers is now to get on and do the work. And hopefully in terms of that volume of projects that you've seen in the last couple of minutes, we've got a hell of a lot on, and we're trying pretty hard to realise that vision as quickly as possible. Next slide. Another thing that always comes up as part of our presentations is good old car parking in the city centre, that old chestnut. I love to put up this slide because as of today, there are more car parks in the city centre than there were at the beginning of last year. So when people say to me, you're taking all of our car parks away, I can call BS on that, because the data actually suggests there are more car parks than there were a year ago. And in actual fact, in April this year, we've got another 110 car parks coming online on Denport Road, and then in the middle of the year, the Panorama Towers car parking building will be open. I think I've got a picture of those after this. Next slide. So this 160 Denport Road, that building on the bottom left is the Second Ave Medical Centre, and you can see Sharp Tudhope Lawyers. This was a piece of land that was available. We picked it up as a strategic land holding for the city. We don't need it for anything specifically in the next few years, so we decided to bowl the buildings and put 110 car parks in. We've just finished demoing the buildings, and the civil contract will start shortly to roll out those car parks in the next couple of months. Next slide. And then it certainly doesn't look like this at the moment, but this is the old Harrington Street car parking building that Craig Watts bought some years ago. Went into a joint venture partnership with Caris and Quayside, and they well on track to finish the 7 stories of car parking, and as soon as that's finished, they will go on and build a 7-story office building on top of that called Panorama Towers. The car parking is due to be finished by the middle of this year, and as part of the deal, when we sold that building to Craig Watts, is they have to make 200 of those car parks available to the public. So from approximately July this year, another 200 car parks will be available there straight across the road from Te Manawa-Take o Te Papa. Next slide. Just more car parking. This was the Elizabeth Street car parking building in December. So at no stage was there more than 65% occupancy in that building. So again, when people say to me there aren't car parks in the city centre, I say, well, hold on a second. Even at the busiest times, on the busiest days, there's 35% occupancy in the Elizabeth Street car parking building. Yes, you've got to pay, but you name me one other city of our size and scale that doesn't have to pay. Yes, you might have to walk a little bit further to get where you're going, but again, we're a fast-growing city, and we're quite different to what we were 20, 30 years ago, and it's not unusual to have to walk half a block to get to the shop you want to go to. Next slide. Same at Spring Street, and in December, not even 50% capacity full at any given time. So there are plenty of car parks in our city centre. And I guess my message to the city centre businesses was, if you keep going out and telling people that our city centre is crap and there's no car parks, that's what they're going to believe. And I don't blame them for not coming. Why would you? If you're sitting in Papamoa with your kids and all you hear about and read about is the city centre's crap and there's no car parks, why would you go? And so our city centre businesses have got a part to play in changing the dialogue and changing the perception of what our city centre's got to offer. And so the purpose of these slides was to start a conversation with them to hopefully get them to understand that they've got a really important role, along with us, to help change the public's perception of our city centre, what it is now and what we're also trying to achieve. Next slide. Last couple of slides. Yes. The other perception I hear all the time is all of the businesses in the city centre leaving. Yeah, they're just leaving at the greatest rate of knots that you've ever heard of. The actual data says that I think we're down 1.9% over the last 4 years. Second level tenancy in the city centre is 88% occupied. So when people again say to me, all the businesses are leaving, it's not true. Certainly businesses are leaving, but we're getting businesses back in, and there's definitely work to do in the future as the city grows and develop to bring businesses back in, but it's just not as dire as people, or the perception that people have about a city centre. Next slide. So all of that, I guess, really speaks to the aspiration for where we want to get to. We will finish some projects in the short term. Some of them are going to take longer. The library community hub, the museum exhibition gallery, there were 28 before we get there. But we're not blind to the challenges that is going to create for our city centre in the short term. So there is going to be noise, there is going to be disruption, there's going to be roads closed. It's going to be a challenging operating environment for our city centre for some period of time to get to a point where some of this stuff starts to be realised. And we've got a wide variety of things that we're trying to do to support city centre businesses through that tough period. We created a fund called the City Centre Development Incentive Fund. There's money available to support good ideas. We have regular meetings with businesses, we have regular meetings with landlords to kind of talk to them about how you're going, anything we can do to help. We've got a wide variety of initiatives. Next slide. I'm not going to talk to all of them, but one that's really, really worked over the last 6 months is we dragged Paul Mason out of the community development team and put him on the street in the city centre, and he's there every day walking around the city centre, talking to businesses and helping solve social, safety, security problems. And that's just made a near overnight difference to how some of our city centre businesses and retailers feel about being in the city centre. So that's proved very, very popular. Next slide. We're spending a bunch of money on activating the city centre, so events, activations, just to give people a reason to come into the city centre, remember that it's still there. So that program's still rolling out. Next slide. We're about to roll out our city centre movement framework. So we've identified, like I said, there's a lot of challenges coming up for the city centre. What we want to do is create a way to get around the city centre that is going to be a constant for the next 3 to 5 years. So people will know how to get around the city centre. So even though there's some construction here, you will always still be able to get where you're going in a way that you're familiar with. So we're about to roll this out in 3 weeks in March. Next slide. And actually go one further. Creating some one-way streets, creating more amenity. Next slide. This is actually the Auckland version that they did of it. Similar type of thing in downtown Tauranga, rolling it out in March before the Jazz Festival. Next slide, which I think is the last one. So what we always challenge people to do, or challenge people with at the end of this presentation is, what can you do to help? The principal one is share our stories. We genuinely believe there's a good plan. We know it's going to take some time to get there. But like I said, a year from now, there's 700 people working in the TCC building. There's 300 people living in Farmers. We won't be far off to Devonport Road, the Craig's Investment Partners building being open, and a bunch of investment people operating out there every day. We've got Dean Waddell's Northern Quarter that will be nearly finished Tower 1 at the same time. They're scheduled for April next year. So Hobeck and Deloitte's moving into the city centre down in Dean's building. As soon as the car park finishes at Panorama Towers, they're building 7 stories of office building there. You are going to see that critical mass of people in the city change relatively quickly. So if you're a little bit excited about what we're trying to do, tell people. When you're at that barbecue on the weekend, tell people. Actually, my single favourite story from the summer, we had a member of our team who was at her street barbecue, and Sanjana, and they asked her where she worked, and she said council, and then kind of ducked for cover. And sure enough, one of the neighbours who she didn't know got on the I hate council bandwagon straight away, and she's just taking a deep breath to kind of defend herself and defend the council, and someone else from the community who lived on her street piped up and started defending the council and the job we're doing without her needing to say anything. And she was beside herself with pride that someone else was speaking to the good work that we're doing in the community, and she didn't have to go to bat for the good work that she thinks we does. And that person was someone that had come along to one of our talks in the last half of last year and had heard this presentation and gone away and went, oh, okay, cool, council are actually getting stuff done. And it was just that one little thing of someone else telling our good news stories for us is really, really powerful. So there's a lot of power in having this information and telling people about it. We don't profess to know everything, so if you've got some great ideas or some feedback, let us know, particularly in terms of helping support the city centre businesses over the next couple of years. It is challenging, and we are going to continue to lose businesses. So if you've got great ideas, let us know. And then finally, we challenge people to use the city centre. We're in the city centre all the time. We tell our team, if you can, don't bring your lunch 5 days a week. One day a week, go and get some sushi from Wharf Street or get a salad from Pluto. Every now and then have a meeting in a cafe and go to a different cafe every time. I've got my favourites, but I'm really deliberate about going to a different cafe every time to share the love around the city centre. We save all our family chemist stuff up for the Unichem on Devonport Road. And just those little things, it might seem not much, but if more people are doing that, it will genuinely start to make a difference. Carlo and I had a plan last year where we took a weekend each, and we'd bring the whānau in. He'd do one Saturday, and I'd do the following one. And we'd go and have breakfast on one of the weekend days at a cafe in the city centre. And just those two people doing that, it made a little bit of a difference. So my challenge to everyone that I present this to is keep that in the back of your mind when you're existing in the city centre about how you can support those local businesses. And I think next slide will be the last one. It's just the end, basically. Yeah, that's the relatively quick version of what we've got going on, and that is just the city centre. That's 4th Ave to Monmouth Street. It's a lot in a small space, but it's really exciting, and it's exciting to be delivering the aspiration of our commissioners, because I know that they weren't easy decisions to make, and spending the ratepayers' money, you have to be very, very careful and deliberate in terms of what you're trying to achieve and what outcomes you're trying to drive. But we feel lucky to be delivering this work on behalf of the city. So happy to answer any questions.
Kia ora, Gareth. It was a fantastic presentation. Really appreciated that. So I'll open up for any discussion, questions.
It's just a related thing, Gareth. I was really disappointed to see that Paper Plus in Grey Street is closing down, which means the postal service there is gone. So the nearest one to the city centre is going to be in 6th Ave, I think. Otherwise, you've got to go all the way to Unichem and Gretton. So I don't know if it's within your power to do something about that, but I think that as a commercial centre, we really need a post office somewhere.
Yeah, so they've reached out to us. We've looked at a couple of things. One, could we accommodate that service within our library in Hepuna Manawa? So that's something we're looking at. And then we've reached out to Priority One, and they're going out to all of the other city centre businesses, because it's actually a contract for service. So one of the existing businesses in the city centre could pick it up and receive some income from providing that service. So we're definitely looking at it. No promises, but it's on our radar.
Stephen.
Thanks, Anthony. I thought that was an exceptional presentation. I've obviously been involved with this whole story as it's developed, but to see that brought together in one coherent presentation, which clearly sets out the vision for the city centre, I think you did a superb job, Gareth. What I'd like to do is clone you so that we could have presentations like that across the city at every community group, organisation, business, whatever, so that the whole city understands the story, because I think if the city understands the vision, then they'll get it and they'll support the CBD. And I think the other part of the story is that whilst this is a city centre revitalisation, it's also a critical part of how we are going to grow Tauranga into the future. So we know the work along Cameron Road has been painful, but now that it's finished, it's the start of creating that whole urban intensification corridor from the city out to the west. And Te Manawataki or Te Papa is truly going to be the heart of that urban development. And we know that we have to go up as well as out as we grow the city. And we can't grow up unless we have the amenity, facilities, the recreation, the point of the centre of the city that really will make living
in around the city such a great place to be. And that will be connected not just by car trips, but actually you could pop out of your apartment along Camden Road and stroll into the city if it's close enough, or you could pop out of your apartment in Maryvale and hop on the bus and get into the city without being reliant on, and families could do that. It's not just the commute to and from work. This is effectively the start of a change in how we grow the city going forward. And then you start to think of that connection then right out to Tauriko and the new urban development and growth area there, where people can live, work and learn, play there, or indeed catch a bus or drive if they choose to into the city centre for the night out at the convention centre, or a visit to the museum, or jumping off the waterfront into the sea. So it is a significant change of direction, and what enables that is the seed investment in the CBD connected to a public transport corridor that's going to be vital to the growth of their city. So there's that overarching story there that is really important, and we haven't done a good job, I don't think, Chair, yet in explaining that fully, but the power of the presentation like that to go out and tell that story across the city, I think, is incredibly powerful. Gareth does a superb job in it, and we can't expect him to go and do that everywhere. But if we can get our comms teams and everyone else in the organisation supporting that, then I think we can lift the vision of the people of the city into what the future might be like.
Thanks, Stephen. Matide.
Kia ora, thank you. I just want to commend Gareth on your presentation. I actually really enjoyed it. And I like that part that says, need to change the public perception. And you're right. When anything is not going right in this town, who gets the blame? The council. Yeah. And so it's really up to ourselves too, is to change our own perception around how we see things, to be able to spread the word, the good messages out into our community. One question that I want to ask is, and it's really good that you went round the residents on Memorial Park walkway. How favourable were they in, because I think most of them had the perception that they owned the front part of their property. How favourable were they in this whole project? Kia ora.
Yeah, great question. We spent nearly a year, and it wasn't every house, but a large percentage of the houses between the Strand and Memorial Park. We actually went there because we wanted to be in people's houses and see the impact that it was going to have. And they were really powerful conversations. And there are some people that are absolutely opposed to the idea. There are more people than you would think that are actually quite supportive of it. There are some people that are publicly supportive, and then there's some people that are privately supportive. They would never put their head up and support it in front of the people that don't support it. But it was great to have those conversations with them. Interestingly, there are a couple of zones. So there's the escarpment zone where all the houses are at the top of the hill. As a general, they're more supportive of it than the people that are right down, who would have people walking past the front of their door. But look, overall, we had a conversation with them, we heard their concerns, and the whole point of it was to try and reflect those concerns and those ideas in the design work that we do, so that if we get to a point in the future where we do create a linear connection, we've done the best possible job we can to reflect their needs and their desires in what we design. And look, we haven't got money in the LTP for that yet. We've got the next stage, which is just to create those connections from 1st, 2nd and 4th Ave and do the beach replenishment between 6th and 7th. So we're just one step at a time. And in parallel to that, and I guess to answer your question, we're going to get an ex-judge or some kind of High Court determination about people's land and those riparian rights and what we can and can't do, because there are 27 of the houses that have some form of legal right over either the riparians, or they have a resource consent for a structure in the coastal marine environment. And their lawyers believe that because of that we can't do anything. Our advice, based on some other projects that have happened around the country, is that we can do something. So we're gonna sort that out in the next next couple of years so that we can definitively say this project could happen if we wanted it to, or don't waste your time. It's a waste of everyone's energy. So we will bring that to a head in the next couple of years in parallel to doing those connections from first, second and fourth.
Just make some comment about the amount of private sector investment that is arising as a result of the investment by the council in terms of that Te Manawatake o Te Papa, the public spaces, the amenity improvements.
Yeah, great question, Bill, and something I do actually normally mention in the presentation, because everything I spoke to really is the civic investment. And look, there's 300 million at Te Manawatake, there's 100 million on the waterfront, there's 30 million at 90 Devonport Road. I mean, there's at least $500 million worth of projects. But that has genuinely been part of the catalyst to private sector confidence in the city centre. Now, we weren't the first. If we need to give credit where credit's due, and that the Pasco's group, in terms of the farmers building at 38 Elizabeth, they saw the future of our city centre and decided to make our $200 million punt 7 years ago. That really set the tone for large-scale investment in the city centre. We've come on board, and as a result of that, you've got the likes of, like I said, Craig's Investment Partners at 2 Devonport Road. You've got Craig Watts, Caris and Quayside at Panorama Towers. You've got Dean Waddell at Northern Quarter. You've got a $218 million Ministry of Justice investment in a new district courthouse, which is out for tender at the moment. And those are kind of just the big ones. There's a bunch of other stuff going on, and well, honestly, on the $20-30 million scale versus the $100-200 million scale that you'll see popping up, like Manawa Energy and New Zealand Blood Foundation on the corner of Hamilton and Cameron. So you're exactly right. What the public sector investment has done has given the private sector confidence that we're investing in our city centre. We see a future there, so should you. And they've absolutely come to the party. And yeah, you'll just see that more and more over the coming years as buildings pop up and finish.
Can I make a suggestion? Is that perhaps planned tours, around the city with, to take people to these significant developments, because, they're just watching from home and reading the newspaper. So I think it might be good to have something like that, and then, have a bit of a barbecue or a cup of tea later, and even listen to the people, the likes of you and inspirational speakers, and even the Dean Waddells and the Scott Adams. So I think that might help. Kia ora.
What a great suggestion, but you'll be pleased to know that we are already doing that. So we started with staff last year and thought we'll test out the model and see how it works. We do walking tours. They take about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. I take some of them, and another one of my team takes them. We've since expanded that out to city centre businesses that are interested in the city centre, and our plan later this year is to roll it out to the general public. But it's just, it's basically that presentation in person, standing in front of the buildings, and it's awesome. We have such a good time, and I did it with Kerry Gillespie from the Bay of Plenty Times a couple of weeks before Christmas, and she did a great article about what we've got going on in the city centre a week or so before Christmas, and that was as a direct result of going on a walking tour of the city centre. It was just her and I. We went for 2 hours. We wandered around the city and told yarns, and it's really great. And so we started with staff. We're on to businesses and general public later in the year.
Yeah, we had that planning conference on transport last year, Gareth, and part of that was a tour of the city. All those planners are really impressed.
I'm speaking at another couple of conferences this year, and we're doing exactly the same thing, taking the delegate. One of the breakout things is to come for a city centre walking tour. And just on Stephen's point, we have been, we've got out to Rotary, we've done Lions, we've done the Lyceum Club, we've done U3A. We are trying to get out further afield, but we started in the city centre, and I like the idea because I'm a genuine believer that just having that face-to-face conversation about what we're trying to achieve will land so much better with 99% of people versus reading something in a paper or social media. And so I think it's a genuinely good use of our time to go and have those talk at those kind of opportunities. So we'll look to do more this year in that space, get out a bit further afield.
Kia ora, Gareth. Carlo, then we've got time for one more.
Yeah, just want to support all the sentiments. It's great to see it, and I'll pinch this off Gareth so that we can share it amongst our networks as well. But I just want to come back to Stephen's point, because I think it's actually a matter of urgency that we get these stories told now, because there is a lot of misinformation out there and assumptions, natural assumptions that can be cut across with this. And we experienced the same sort of thing where we wanted to clone Meririna a while ago for some of her training, so we know what that's like, and hoping that Gareth doesn't get offended by it. But one way to do that is to capture video. And why I wanted to interject a little bit, whether I've got a Tangata Whenua hat on or a staff hat on, I don't know, but I'm always keen for this group to not get too insular and do a great presentation and talk nicely to each other, but actually perhaps be able to flex a tooth here and there to get out into the staff. I wonder whether this group might, between the support of Tangata Whenua and the commissioners, actually say, well, we actually want to actually get a video done for that. Because beyond the walking tours, which are great and they're really personable and that'll work for people and you can target, we need the sort of social media and things like that working for us and amongst it. And I just think if we had maybe the 5 or the 10-minute version of that cleverly done, and probably some of the challenges on the parking that we can work out the right way to pitch that. But it seems essential to get that actual little piece of work done, directed to get done urgently, so that we actually push that out and about. Because I know Matiri, if we were able to share that across Rangapu, they can actually put those on their Facebook pages of their hapu, and we've had a few submissions where hapu members maybe are feeling less informed about some of that stuff. So if we can have some of those tools to get more people singing the same song, there might be quite a cool outcome. Or I don't know if this committee moves motions that actually trigger an actual piece of work to be done, but it seems like a small thing but a really effective thing, given the support and the reaction to Gareth's presentation from both Tangata Whenua and the commissioners. So I'm just wondering whether or not there's an opportunity here we don't always have that opportunity to have actually an action come out of this that is directed, that gets an outcome, that's pushing it out there in support of that. And telling that story is crucial.
So what is the process? Oops. Yep. So what is the process then?
I might be suggesting someone might move a motion to that effect, but I can't do that.
Yeah, Chair, I see no reason why we couldn't recommend,
Yes.
with everyone's support. I'm just sort of framing up some. This committee recommends that the story, for want of a better word, of the city centre development be communicated across organisations and groups and communities within the city, but that also a shortened video be created that tells the story that might be deployed via hapu, iwi, and social media generally. That's a long motion, but that's the sentiment, I think.
Okay. So you're putting that motion?
I'll put that motion.
And second.
Making the comment that there would be some urgency given to it. And one of the reasons for suggesting that is that there is an event in late July, and I see this as part of just getting good information out there, so people have the, without it being made up or myths developing.
Okay, so that was moved by Stephen, seconded by Bill. All in favour? carried. Shad, did you have your hand up?
I just wanted to support the comments in it, and I suppose something that's kind of stuck in my mind, and it was great that Gareth put it up, was actually having some evidence to support the decision. So all the metrics around parking and about occupancy and businesses in and around the city, I think, is critical. And I think from a commission point of view, and I think from a council point of view, when they come in, I need to see some good evidence that actually the dial is moving, things are shifting, people are parking in the buildings, people are taking up occupancy across the city, whether that's retail, commercial, hospitality, or whatever. So, we just need to be conscious of continually monitoring how the city's developing and growing, hopefully, over the next period or so.
Kia ora, Shad. So I'm going to close discussion now on that, on the item in the presentation, and just also Gareth endorse the thanks and mihi to you for that. It was really a fantastic presentation, and like Shad, I was really interested in the car parking statistics. It just goes to show you that misinformation becomes people's truth. So yeah. So kia ora tātou. Now after that act, we're moving to Tangata Whenua presentation updates. No, that's Carlo, sorry. Yes, sorry. I beg your pardon, we've got, I just make sure I've got the, yes, you're next on the agenda.
O kia ora tātou, mihi ana ki a tātou i tēnei wā, kia koe Pugiraki, nau I whakate tūwhera tō tātou hui, e mihi ana. Good to be here and along with a few updates. I think Matiri has strategically put her report in late, so I have to go before you, so hopefully things match up. As always, we have our table here that keeps you updated of things, so most things are listed there. Busy times out there, so some things were, I guess, in the hands of Hapu in terms of when they might want to come back and what timing and pressures they have on them at different times, and other things need to fit in with staff work programs. So some of these things are probably been here a little while and we'd like them to move faster, but they are what they are. Key points as we move our way through, I think, for out at Wairua Marae, and with there's a number of things on here that are to do with the marae. I think they've progressed pretty well. And I know that there's commentary from the hapu out there about some of the improvements in the egress and safety and things like that. And not without a lot of hard work from staff just to keep people abreast of the cycleway changes and things like that. But one that is probably been the more difficult one for us to progress has been progress on Porteriwhi. I can give you the update that Ngāti Kahu has a huia hapu on Sunday. And we hope they will be able to give us a steer on what those next steps may be. We have had communications from some of those hapu committee members that they were hopeful of a counter proposal on some housing aspects, and I won't go too far into that to let them keep those discussions with council going without prejudicing any of those. But we've also said to them that really council needs them to propose what might be acceptable to them culturally. So it's a tricky little space, but as I say, hopefully huia hapu on Sunday will enable some sort of direction on the next steps. As we move through and down this, I note that with Hungahunga Torua, Ngāti Tapu and Ngai Tūkairangi, there was quite a pointed submission put in by them around engagement and the need for some of the planning support that they're looking for. So we have been in communication with them to remind them of some of the channels that are already available to them whenever they would like to push play on that. So I guess for the iwi members it is interesting, and I think it'll be good, our Tangata Whenua members, we do need to work hard on encouraging people to share information. because it can be, it ends up on a public record when some people are frustrated about things that actually have a mechanism already there, and that there have been communications through to some of those mandated reps. So it makes us think about different ways that we might be able to communicate and share stuff, hence my korero about maybe sharing some of Gareth's great information. As you say, Mr. Chair, just cutting across some of those assumptions that we make out there. And it is good to hear also that Gareth talking about the business community needs to create their own narrative too, because if they're a self-defeating narrative, then it's tough. But same thing for our tangata whenua. We need our whānau out there knowing what's going on and knowing what their opportunities are. And our protocols say we would direct that through a mandated rep. But if it's not getting through to the rest of the other decision-making parts of iwi or hapu, then Takawanga is pretty keen to do what we can to bridge over that. But we're also conscious that to some degree will be against our protocols. Our protocols say we'll communicate through a mandated rep. So there's just some of the challenges in front of us. As we go through the table here, I see we have the Pito and Hino properties, which we've got to read alongside it, that I think has progressed further than this now, but it isn't an opportunity. We don't have an opportunity to return Pito and Hino properties to Māori owners, so I'm suggesting we remove that now off this table. Mangatawa Marae, I'm pleased to report that last night Tuana was able to finally meet with the new trustees. It was a meet and greet and build some trust and confidence, because the new trustees out there have been a different crew from what had previously been discussing things with us. But what we hope to do is give them some good, accurate information on the discussions being had with councils, because there's some good opportunities for improving the infrastructure to that particular marae, which we have actually achieved with most of the other marae now. Coming down to Waimapi marae, we had some success around working with regional council on some of the log jams in the Waimapi River, but we have become aware there has been some problems with health and safety there in the last week. So we need to just probably take a step back and keep working with them to try and create a level of health and safety through there. And it's to do with trees being subject to erosion on private land, which neither us or regional council has any jurisdiction over, but they end up in the river and as both an environmental hazard, but actually a hazard to those who are using the river as well. So I say that because we are aware that there may be a communication that comes through to council and the regional council and ourselves about concerns about their health and safety. So you would have noted a good submission from Kenny Piahana during his thing, so that's who we're working through with it, but we expect there might be quite a strong concern expressed about health and safety in there. Whether it's in our TCC jurisdiction or not, I think in the spirit of collaboration we're looking to help them out with that. Other than that, it's pretty much as read.
Kia ora, Carlo. Any questions on the floor? Chat?
Kia ora, Carlo, thank you. I'm just looking at, issue number 13 with the Mangatawa Marae refurbishment. I understand that that's resolved.
I haven't caught up with Tuana from last night's meeting. I mean, our main aspect was that we had heard the new trustees had some concerns with our interactions with the previous trustees and then what may have come out subsequently. So I'd need to catch up with them just to make sure that is the case. Our aspiration was to open the door for sharing information in case what they had available to them may not have necessarily have been what we knew of to be the situation. So both the OSET system, the wastewater system, and the marae refurbishment, we're looking for clarity on what they expect and that they understand what we had offered or we were trying to do ourselves as well. So I haven't heard back from Tuana how that meeting went.
And just on number one with at Wairoa with the road noise, I'm just conscious that with the TNL, at some point in the process, the existing state highway will need to go through a revocation process, and whether there's opportunities through that negotiation between council and Waka Kotahi or NZTA about some improvements or some things they could do through that process to help with noise. I know we've put the noise wall in, but whether that's still an ongoing issue and whether there's opportunities there through that revocation process.
Yep, definitely keep that conversation alive. There are, other various different things within either our remit or Waka Kotahi's remit at the moment where, for example, resealing and what they choose to reseal that with and how that fits into the resealing program at Waka Kotahi that we continue to advocate into. I know that the Waka Kotahi representatives are having regular meetings to make sure that that's there and we're in support of that. And we have a new Director of Transport at TCC that we need to bring up to speed with that, who is just in the process of organising a catch-up with us on Friday. And it has, I know when we first talked out there, we explained that the TNL might reduce the amount of traffic on there for a start, and that we could advocate with Waka Kotahi while it's still a state highway, and that we need to figure out what they can get done while it is a state highway, but then what might be done when it returns to be a local road, and just keep the overall aspiration of mitigating impacts on the marae as best as we can. So I think the actual key to it that has been really good is, despite however difficult the conversations may be, we're in very regular contact with them, and so as different staff members change in the different departments, the role Takawanga can play is to be a bit of a constant ear there and keep reminding of those conversations. But it is, as you say, multifaceted as it changes through those hands, so there's different opportunities arise at different times, so we'll continue to look for opportunities that keep improving the situation.
Just a clarification, Carlo, in terms of, and I'm talking about the Pitau and Hinau properties, and you're suggesting we take them off the list. Do you need that as part of a resolution, or does that just happen?
On the previous ones, I've just sort of updated and made sure that the committee is comfortable that we do that. I could probably just do it and say, well, that's red, it's not going to go anywhere, waste of time having a big long list, but in the last few meetings we just said, as long as you guys are aware, if anybody has any worry with that and would rather leave it on, just say and we'll do that. I don't think we need a resolution. I think you're aware and we can just do that.
Yeah. So I'm happy to move receipt of the report, Chair, but Carla, the other thing, just to, when you're reviewing the list, issue 20, subject to next Monday's meeting, that will also be resolved. So,
congratulations.
Okay, so moved by Bill, seconded by Stephen. All in favour? Report received. Carried. Kia ora tātou. We're now moving to... Kia ora. Kia ora. Welcome. We're now moving to Mātire, Rangapu report. Just take the report as read, and you just talk to anything that you want to, Mātire.
There are a couple of key things that I want to have a discussion around. Oh, first of all, I just want to thank the Commission and the Council staff for the awesome candidates evening on Monday night. The calibre of presenters were really outstanding, and and even the attendance of the audience as well behaved. and yeah. So yeah, I just take my hat off at having a wonderful evening for everyone. Thank you very much. Yeah, the couple of, two things that I really wanted to raise in my report was around the fast tracking consenting legislation, and also the other one was I think it was around the, where are we? I think that probably was it really. And I don't know if you know, but the first phase of the fast tracking consenting legislation was completed just before Christmas. And now the second phase will be to introduce a permanent fast tracking consenting process for locally, regionally and nationally of significant infrastructure and development. And the third phase is around the reform to replace the Resource Management Act with the new resource management laws based on the enjoyment of property rights. I am aware that there was that COVID-19 fast tracking consenting process, and I do know that the Tauranga Courthouse is actually one of them on that list. Our concern is that Tangata Whenua have, and especially Hapu, have been dealing with the resource consent and from the councils, and the concern is that whether that is still going to continue, especially around the significant sites that could potentially be destroyed, and there's no consultation with iwi and Hapu. So I wanted us to have that conversation. Doesn't have to be today. I just wanted your views on on where you guys or where the council sees things at the moment. Kia ora.
Was that, did you want to have that discussion? Is that your...
If there's any views at the moment, that will be really good. But I also seek that Rangapu and the council have that conversation at a separate time.
Right, okay. Is there anything else that we're going to cover in your report?
No, because
okay.
I did say that to accept my report as written.
Okay. So, kia ora, Matire. Just in terms of the question that Matire has put, any views on how and when that interaction might happen? This is around the discussion about the fast tracking process and involvement of mana whenua. Shad?
Sorry, I'm probably conflicted in this conversation. I'm doing work for the Crown on the fast track process, but at this point in time, government is seeking to introduce legislation on the 7th of March, and that'll be a public submission process, the select committee process. I don't think council's necessarily got a position on that at the moment. We haven't even had briefings on it, so that's my understanding at the moment. But I'm sure we'll probably get some information and then inform a submission.
Chair.
You'll go first because he's much more experienced than I am in these areas.
I was going to suggest, Chair, because I don't know, apart from what Shad's quickly just outlined, what's the nature and focus of the fast tracking. So it would be quite good once we get the legislation and it's introduced on the 7th, and I think that would be a good time post that to actually have a joined up conversation. Really, firstly, understanding the intent. There's lots of discussion and potentially myths and fact. So it's fully understanding what that fast tracking involves. So I think that would give us the opportunity to have an informed discussion and then start to form what our views are.
That's exactly what I was thinking as well and going to say, and there may well be an opportunity for a joint submission, assuming there's alignment, and I think there probably would be, so, but I think, yeah, if we've got the document in front of us, and then there'll be the usual select committee process and submissions to influence that.
Kia ora, buddy.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd be very concerned if there's any clawback, for example, on Part 2, Sections 6, 7A and 8, 8 in particular being the treaty principles. And so, yeah, if we could have a discussion to see where our kind of interests align and make a joint submission, I think that would be very good.
Yeah, yeah. So this is this part of the government's 100-day plan? Yeah. Carlo.
Yeah, just well, first and foremost, you know, I think the timing of seeing when it comes out and having a joint hui is in keeping with how we've dealt with the three waters, some of that other stuff. So I just wanted to make that point, especially as we approach July, and hopefully that's setting a good formula for how we're working together. So I just wanted to support that. I guess from a takawanga point of view, our experience so far and what we're looking for is that when an applicant does thorough engagement pre-application, then the fast-tracking consenting process has good potential. When that doesn't happen, then it's a big risk. And I think, you know, the courthouse is probably a good example where there's been a lot of investment into that pre-application engagement, and therefore when it did come across our table, it was pretty easy to be able to support that that's been happening, and that you know, there's other cases where we've sort of said we think there's a few that this could be done better before it would have that support. It's going to be different, I think, once the legislation comes in, because, you know, it'll be a bit more of a usual process than an unusual process, but that's what we're openly saying we need to be looking for. And so I think the reality in that conversation is that legislation develops is that applicants need to know this doesn't mean it's going to be cheaper and faster for you. It means you need to do your work before you apply. And so I think that's probably the message and the feedback we'll be giving if we have opportunity to comment to those things. And what we're looking out for is that it's not something that slips past things. What it's saying is do the pre-application work to enable a good fast process once it gets into the bureaucracies.
Kia ora, Carlo. Any other questions, comments? So, Martira, you moved that your report be accepted. Do you have a seconder? Seconder, Puhirake. All in favour? Carried. Right. Yeah. We have no other items on the agenda. And that being the case, mihi tēnei kia tātou, no te āhuatanga o tātou kōrerorero. No reira, tēnei wā e tuku atu ki a koe Puhiraki, nau e whakakapia ki tō tātou hui hui.